Welcome back to another video. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Jose Mourinho has been sacked this morning as Tottenham Hotspur head coach. What is next for Spurs? All this stuff about the Europa or the new Super League that's coming up as well. I've got Spurs fan Lee with me, Lee McQueen. Lee, firstly, let's talk about the Jose Mourinho sacking. Are you surprised? How are you feeling?
Amazing. Nice to be on, Chris. Good to see you, buddy, as always. Well, I had to take some time out, didn't we, to try and cover this. I mean, it's absolutely huge. Am I pleased? I actually wrote a tweet earlier and I deleted it. And I wrote, when Poch got sacked, I was very sad, crying, it almost, blubbering like a death in the family. And now Jose's been sacked just 17 months after his appointment, and I feel relieved. That's all I can say. I feel relieved. And it's interesting, actually, because Rob was already on the questions there, said we should at least give Jose the cup final. I think that's the issue for me, is the timing of where we are. Nothing much has changed other than the European Super League announcement, which I don't know, maybe there's been some murmurings that, he doesn't like that, and that's the straw that broke the camel's back. But personally, I think that's a non-story. I think that the results have got Jose Mourinho ultimately cost him his job. It's probably more likely that Harry Kane's gone in to see the chairman, and it's moved from there. But then you see the class of Harry Kane, coming out and wishing his boss all the best. I don't know. I can't say that I don't know what's gone on. I think it's been obvious. I put a poll out on Twitter last week that got 10,800 votes. 80% of them votes, Chris Cowlin, wanted Jose Mourinho out. I know both you and I, when we're doing the Last Word on Spurs podcast, we've kind of been a bit like, let's give him time. We think trophies are coming. I actually still think they are coming. They might happen on Sunday. Who knows? But the reality is that it's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one. Not because of the football we were playing. That was turgid. Let's get it right. Not because we had fantastic defence. It was rubbish. Let's get it right. It's a difficult one because the plan that was meant to work hasn't. And 17 months in charge, 3 transfer windows, albeit to January, one of them in a major pandemic, or 2 of them in a major pandemic. What's he brought in? 7 or 8 players. Jedson Fernandez. They brought the wrong Fernandez in. Is that Jose or is that the club? Very, very difficult. Brought some good players in the summer. I think most of us, that you can't please everyone, by the way, but I'm sure most of us were happy with the transfer window that we did. I think if Jose got a centre back in, as we've talked about so much on your show, and obviously on subsequent shows, Last Word on Spurs, that actually if we've got a Skriniar in or something like that, it may have been different. But the records, and I think you've got these stats, Chris, right? The records that he's broken at Tottenham are for all the wrong records and all the ones he didn't want to break. What was you saying to us the other day? Like, he's 3 defeats on the bounce. Never had that before in a club football before he come to Tottenham. It's the first club now that he's failed to win a trophy at. It ain't going to go down as him winning the trophy, is it? Even if we win on Sunday. So it's a mess, Chris, isn't it? It's a mess.
It's a mess. That is exactly the word I've been using in the last 24 hours. And this is before even Jose Mourinho got sacked. Of course, we had all this news last night. I went to bed at about 3:30 this morning. I've done absolutely no work today. As I said to you before we started this show, I've got an in-tray as long as my arm and my leg at the moment. And then, of course, Tottenham then sacked Jose Mourinho. So here we are talking about it all day. Lee, you're absolutely right what you said earlier. Go back to November 2019. Mauricio Pochettino got sacked, a huge fan's favourite, a big favourite of mine, a big favourite of yours. A lot of us were very upset. I think that you and I both described it at the time as like a death in the family of him going. Jose Mourinho being sacked today, 17 months later, you don't feel like that, do you?
No, it's a relief, isn't it? I'll ask you back. I said I feel it's a relief. It's like when back in the day, or I've run my own businesses now for near on 10 to 11 years, so I essentially don't get fired unless my ball bought me out. But ultimately, when you lose a job or you leave a job or you break up a relationship, and sometimes you think, why didn't I do that sooner? It kind of feels a little bit like that moment. How are you feeling, Chris?
It's funny, on the Last Word on Spurs podcast that I did after the Everton game, it's the first time that I was really questioning what Jose Mourinho was doing. And yes, obviously, when I look back at some of the football that we've played under Jose, when I think of Jose Mourinho's management at Spurs, I think of 2 games, so up and down. The 0-0 draw at the end of last season at Bournemouth. 102 minutes played in Premier League football, not a shot on target. That was one of the most dismal, boring games of football I've ever seen as a Tottenham Hotspur fan in my life. And then, of course, you go to early on in the season when we absolutely battered Manchester United 6-1 at Old Trafford. Now, Lee, we do the Last Word on Spurs podcast a lot together. You know, we have lots of banter, we have lots of laughs, and even had disagreements in the past as well. But all season, I've been saying the trophies are coming. You've been saying, you know, get on this crazy train and just ride with it, and, you know, there'll be lots of ups and downs. That's exactly what we've had this season. There has been so many ups and downs.
Well, I'm hoping that the trophies are still coming. So hopefully your bit gets right as well, and it ends up turning into a party bus. I mean, look, when we did a Love Sport show when Jose was appointed, and I was absolutely unequivocally saying it will be an interim appointment. It will not be a long-term appointment. You've got to ride the train, hence the name Crazy Train come around. And that's exactly what's happened. You know, we've been, as a fan base, so divided. There's been, you know, there's lots of hate and abuse and whatever on Twitter. It's just, you know, sometimes it can be poison. But actually between fans, people that actually support and have the same beliefs and the same, something such a common, a key common thing, isn't it? You know, football, supporting your football club, everybody's doing it there for the same reasons. Yet that's been so divided, certainly over the last kind of couple of months. We were in the title challenge in 15-16. We never was top of the league. Never. 15-16, but we're in the title challenge. We were in the title challenge 16-17, but I think we spent 1 week, maybe I'm wrong here, but maybe 1 week at the top of the division. Never, ever after that was we top of the league. This year, we've been an absolute shambles, yet we spent best part of nearly 5 weeks at the number 1 spot. I mean, you could not make this stuff up. The season's mad. The stats are mad. It's crazy. It's a crazy train, like I've been saying all season. And when you look at, you know, with the first team or the second team behind Bayern Munich to score 100 goals in all competitions, yet we can't. We're in a defensive team. Yet, you know, we've got a horrific defensive record. We are woeful. Yet we've got the third or fourth best before the Everton game. Third or fourth best defense in the Premier League. It just doesn't correlate. It's completely crazy, isn't it, Chris? You think about sacking the manager who, I know it's in hindsight, right? So we've seen what he's done now for our football club. But if I offered you Jose Mourinho, right, to manage a cup final for Tottenham, 95% of our fan base would have snapped your hand off for that one-off game to get Jose Mourinho because he gets over the line. And we've sacked him 6 days before cup final. I mean,
why do you think it is, Lee? Because we've said many times, you know, whether you're Jose in, Jose out, or, you know, whether you're a fan of him or not. And I think that, you know, when some fans who weren't particularly a great fan of the man Jose Mourinho before the Amazon documentary, when you saw the Amazon documentary, I think a lot of fans were actually, you know, turned around and said, oh, actually, he's all right. You know, he turned some fans around in that way. But, you know, when you've got someone like him who's got so many teams over the line, he's gone to every single club and won trophies. And now, of course, that quiz question has been created. What is the only club that Jose Mourinho didn't win a trophy at? Tottenham Hotspur. When we had days away, Lee, why have they made that decision now?
Well, I mean, I try and give it some balance. You know, look at both sides, like we try to do. No, I think if you look at it from the reasons for keeping him, it would be he's won most things twice, 3 times over. One of the most successful managers ever. You know, he would get you over the line. You know, you could argue that he's against Pep, who's also one of the other most successful managers. So that's a difficult one. But ultimately, look, he's one of few managers to win everything in the game. So, you know, he's got that winning mentality for that particular final. Again, people will pick up on me. Well, where was the winning mentality against United the other week? Where's the winning mentality against Everton? I get that. I understand that. But the argument is that he's a world-class manager in terms of what he's done in the past, and it hasn't worked out from here. I suppose the other side of the argument would be new manager bounce. You know, the fact of the matter is, on Sunday, and we don't even know what's happening with Kane's injury yet. I think, personally, it's going to be okay. But you know, there's nothing really come out of the club. So it's probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, he's going to be fine. But what I could tell you this for nothing is that if Jose Mourinho is in charge for Sunday, he might be getting us over the line, which at the end of the day, as a result, is what we want, because we want that trophy. But he wouldn't be playing Bale. He wouldn't be playing Dele. He wouldn't be playing, you know, Lo Celso at the same time as, you know, as a Bales and London Bale, as a Son. he'd be playing like 4-5. He'd be parking the butt, that sort of football. Whereas actually with a new manager coming in, whoever it's going to be, an interim manager or somebody's got signed up or whatever it might be, new manager bounce, you can bet your bottom dollar Bale starts. You can bet your bottom dollar that you're going to have an attacking foray on there, and unless of course he goes and gets another defensive coach to come in and shut up shop. So I think that there's pros and cons to that. What I'm worried about, Chris, if I'm brutally honest, and this is no reflection one iota on the man himself and the coach that he will become, but to hear Ryan Mason is taking training today is one thing. But if they're going to appoint Ryan Mason as the interim manager for the rest of the season, that is a massive issue, a massive, massive mistake. You cannot take, let's be honest, an absolute rookie, and they say that to himself, into the cup final. What is this? This is Ryan Mason and his best mate Harry Kane, and they're managing the team together. I mean, this is a mess. So my guess, and this is only a guess, viewers and listeners, of course, right? But my guess would be that he's lined somebody up already, and that person is going to come in the next 24 hours. It can't be that we're walking 6 days into a cup final and we have no idea who our manager is. Sure, can it, Chris? I'll throw it over to you. What do you think?
It seems strange. It's funny because Jason McGovern, one of our own on Last Word on Spurs, I did a Spurs chat with him straight after the Everton game. And I jokingly said, when the TV cameras zoomed in on Daniel Levy and he was texting on his phone, wasn't he? And I said, perhaps he's lining up the replacement. Perhaps he was, Lee. Perhaps he was actually doing that.
He's got form. Let's be honest, Chris. He's got form, hasn't he? Martin Yole got form with Poch. He already had Levy lined up before he put he gave Poch the sack. So he's got form in doing it.
It's funny how, of course, at the end of that game as well, Serge Aurier and Hugo Lloris were having a laugh after the game. A lot of fans criticised that. Perhaps they knew. Perhaps they knew. Harry Kane come off the pitch shaking his head. I know a lot of people thought it was about his injury. Perhaps that was about the management. I don't know.
Wasn't it? Martin Yole, back all them years ago, Martin Yole found out at half time back in that October. I think from memory, didn't we draw 4-4 with Aston Villa? I think that was the nail in the coffin, I think, off the top of my head. I think it's very, very strange timing. I think that the one thing that you want going into a cup final, isn't it? That is continuity, a bit of, but again, I think that's probably what's lacked. I'm just thinking out loud, chatting it through with you. I think that's what's lacked this year. Continuity in the back four, in the back five. Again, against Everton, we played a different system. Again, we played a different system with different players in that system. Reguilon, who's been, branded as brilliant left back, he was not very good against Manchester United. He weren't very good against Everton either. Again, from a left back, and he's a good player. You've got Serge Aurier coming in, laughing at the end of the game. Contract rebel, one of the original contract rebels. Don't want to be here, quite outspoken, not really that bothered. And he plays. You've got Doherty, who was a signing for Jose Mourinho, and been absolute shadow of himself, like literally like a completely different player. You've got 3 or 4 centre backs that don't know where they're coming. It's like Yoki Koki. You put your one centre back in, you put the other centre back in, you take him out, you take that one out. And to be fair, it's been like that for 3 years. It's been like that since we lost 13 Premier League games in Poch's last season when we got to Champions League final. Champions League final, unbelievable memories, unbelievable day, stadium. The weekend that I had in Madrid with my boys, and I know you were there in the stadium as well as I was, and it was incredible. Obviously, lost the Ajax game, unbelievable. But we're talking, we were like what, 8 seconds, 5 seconds of going out of that Champions League against Ajax. We was like a VAR goal decision from going out in the quarterfinals against Man City. We were about 6 minutes away from going out when not even qualifying for the round when we had to draw against Barcelona. Let's have it right. That was our Champions League run. And what we tend to do as fans and as people and as human beings is we always remember the good stuff rather than the bad. A relationship turns south for reasons that we end up forgetting and going, oh, yeah, it was so amazing. But then you watch back. I watched back the other day, Harry Kane's Premier League 100. I mean, some of the football we played, it was unbelievable. And again, a friend of ours, friend of the shows, with your show and Last Word on Spurs, Alistair Gold. I think he summed it up perfectly when he said earlier in the week in one of his articles. He said, we were craving for trophies. Now we're just hoping that we get back to watching football that we like and enjoy watching. And what has it come to over the last 18 months, 2 years? Ever since that Burnley defeat under Pochettino in January 2019, other than the Champions League final, which obviously was a massive impact on all of our lives, we've been woeful. True story.
Do you know what saddened me, Lee, is the other day, of course, it was the 2-year anniversary of us losing 4-3 at Manchester City, but of course going through to the semi-finals of the Champions League. And I tell you what, when I think back to nights like that, when I was in the stadium, the feeling that I had as a Spurs fan, and of course the Ajax game, and there's lots of Pochettino moments, that I can look back on, with true fondness and delight. I feel very different as a Spurs fan right now, and that was only 2 years ago, and that's what saddens me, how quickly things can change.
You mentioned, I know it's only 17 months in charge, so we have to give him some sort of leeway for that, because you can only do so much in 17 months. When Poch, when we was going for a little bit of a tougher time with Poch, we were like, we've changing stadiums, we're going to Wembley. A lot has happened in the club over that period. Jose's had to look. All the other managers have as well. Let's be honest, but Jose's had to fight pandemic. He's had to fight, having hardly any money, probably due to the fact of the pandemic hitting as well. He probably would have had a bigger summer if the pandemic hadn't hit. So he's got some challenges or adversaries there. But I still think back, and you just mentioned it before, the 6-1 against Manchester United, maybe scoring 7 against Maccabi Haifa, and then I'm struggling. I'm struggling. I'm struggling to find a time when I was off my seat and absolutely bouncing under Jose Mourinho. Maybe his first game in charge against West Ham, but we nearly blew that. We went 3-0 up and we ended up winning 3-2, but we nearly blew that. So I just, I'm struggling.
Do you know what, Lee? You're saying you're struggling, and I can't pick out many fantastic moments, under Jose Mourinho's management. However, fans like you and me have given him 100% of our backing. Whether we agree with some of his decisions or whatever, people like me and you have backed him 100%, and we've done that, and it just hasn't worked, has it? It's fair to say this appointment just hasn't worked.
It just hasn't worked. I think that's clearly, it hasn't worked. Like I said, 3 transfer windows, 2 of them being January, 2 of them being in a global pandemic, and bringing in a Jedson Fernandez, awful. Bringing in a Vinicius, he's not very good, is he? Let's be honest, in terms of his touch and all that sort of stuff. Scoring goals against Marine. I'll be the first one to bring out the blue book and start talking about stats. But his stats in his goal ratios are, they look healthy. But the fact of the matter is, he's been scoring a hat trick against Marine. I could probably even do that. No offense, but I probably couldn't. But you know where I'm coming from. I just think I'm a little bit lost for words, which is one of the first things. It's one of the first for me. The reason why, Chris, is because I don't want to sound like a little spoiled child when I say this, but any non-Spurs fan watching us now or listening back will just be cracking up at me because I think we're a bit of a banter club, right? The Dulux stuff earlier last week and stuff. we're a proper banter club. What is going on? But what I was going to say is that it does feel a little bit like, why is it always us? Like, it does feel like that. There's so much, hate or rivalry, should we say, for our club. I don't actually know why, because we don't win anything, right? We don't really challenge anyone else. You look at Chelsea and you look at what's happened since Roman Abramovich come in, and you look at the continuity that they haven't had and all the different managers they've had and whatever, and you just think that should not work. Yet they're the most successful club in England for trophies over the last 10 years. I just think you look at that and you think Arsenal are arguably having one of their worst ever seasons, yet they're in the semi-final of the Europa League and they're only like 3 points behind us in the league. It's just, we're in an absolute mess. And I've got to be honest with you, because I know where you're going to ask me this, and rightly so. I don't know where else we go from here. I remember, and it was a passionate show that we all did for Last Word on Spurs, and you said it has to work. This has to work, because where else do we go? I take you back to that time when you and Rick was in the pub before and the Love Sports show, and you said it's got to be Jose Mourinho to come in. We got him. 17 months later, he's gone. I called him an interim appointment. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think it was going to be this interim, but he's gone. Where do we go now, Chris?
Lee, is there a part of you that feels sorry for Jose Mourinho or not?
There is a little bit, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to justify that before all the viewers start switching off or lambasting me, is because I think that he doesn't get. This is a guy that came into the English game saying, I'm the special one and watch me go and do this. And he did everything. And the media loved him. And he was the darling. He was the golden manager. Absolutely no doubt about it. And like most things in life, it doesn't last over a long period of time. Definitely with the media, very, very fickle. They want to move on to the next new shiny thing. They're like magpies. The media in the world is like a magpie, right? Like nice new shiny thing. Go over to it. Yeah, love it, love it. And then as soon as something goes wrong or they've got new shiny thing on, they just move on. And I think that's what's happened with Jose a little bit. And he's tried to kind of get that back. I mean, he got absolutely battered at Manchester United, and probably rightly so for some of the stuff that we've seen at Tottenham. But he did finish second, and he did win the Europa League, and he did win the Carling Cup, or whatever it was called back then, the Carabao Cup. And so he did put stuff in the trophy cabinet. And to be fair, he could have put something in our trophy cabinet, which manager after manager after manager has failed to do in 13 years in our football club. I think you've got to put it into perspective. I mean, some of these managers that are, I see the bookies and the favourites and stuff coming in. I think we're so up our own selves. We would never have signed Johnny Evans as a centre back. No one would have been happy with him. But he's been outrageously good at Leicester. Yet we'd never have him at Tottenham. He wouldn't be good enough. It's the same with these managers. Some of these managers that we're probably going to talk about, and people are like, "Yeah, I'm not having him." Like, what do you mean? Like, we've got to do something different. So I do feel a little bit for Jose Mourinho, but I also feel in balance, he brings it on himself. How can you have Gareth? But I don't care what anyone says, right? How can you have Gareth Bale on the bench after week, on the bench, and not play him? How? Yeah. This guy can turn a game. This guy can make something happen. And actually, Chris, he was going for a real rich vein of form. If you look at some of his goal ratios, goal to assist ratios as well, I think he was only 3% behind Son. Amazing in terms of the games that he's actually played. Yet he's isolated him. Dele Alli. Yeah. I think Dele Alli is a special player, and I like Dele, and you know my views on Dele. But I can understand from an attitude perspective potentially as to why maybe he wasn't getting games, because that wasn't under a Mourinho thing. He was doing it under Poch as well. Previously his form had dropped off quite heavily. But isolating these players, and he's done it time and time again. He didn't like Salah, so he sold him, become a world-class striker. Didn't like Lukaku, sold him from Chelsea, but then he brought him back at Manchester United, and now he's a world-class striker. Didn't fancy Kevin De Bruyne, probably arguably the best attacking midfielder or midfielder that there is in the league that has seen, and he got rid of him as well. Don't fancy Bale, don't fancy Dele Alli. There's a type here, and I think the thing is with Jose Mourinho, you're either all in or you're actually all out. And I think that's the bit where I probably don't feel sorry for him, if that makes sense. But his work ethic, his commitments, his past achievements. Yeah, I feel a little bit. I think it's more I'm gutted, Chris. I'm gutted that it didn't work out because, like I said before, almost like Mario Balotelli with his shirt over. Why is it always me? That's what it feels like at Tottenham. Why is it always us? And again, I don't want to have a go at everybody today. So, it's an opportunity to really talk about, the things that are wrong with the club. Like the common denominator in the football club has been the ownership, hasn't it? Let's be honest. The last 20 years, since an ink bought off my previous boss, the last 20 years, we've delivered one piece of silverware, isn't it? Because effectively the other the Alan Nielsen Cup, if Worthington Cup, whatever it's called, was 99, which was under Lord Sugar. So the reality is they've delivered one trophy in 20 years.
Yeah, Lee, why do you think Jose Mourinho was sacked? Was it about the results? Was it about the style of football, or was it about the this new European Super League? Because there's lots of reports and rumours going around that Jose Mourinho wasn't happy about it. Do you think it's a mixture of all of those things, or one thing about the style or about the results?
I think it was my poll on Twitter. 11,000 people on Twitter voted, and I think it was that. No, I think it's probably. There's always a saying that goes around that a disaster happens not just because of one thing. It's a series of events, and I think there is a series of events there. It would not surprise me at all if Jose's principles were absolutely against the European Super League. It wouldn't surprise me. So if he's got strong principles of football and the pure of the game and all that sort of stuff, wouldn't surprise me if he's against that. I think that's a bit of a ruse, if I'm honest. I don't think that's. I think that will be something that is used probably from his side, certainly from his people, to say this is why we left, because he doesn't want to say that he failed. But I think the results weren't good enough, and I think that the style of play. We said it on the last Word on Spurs when we were last together, and I've said it subsequently a few times as well. We lost our identity. The last show that we was on together, Chris, do you remember we talked about, the fact that I was really proud to buy the Tottenham apparel. I was really proud to put it onto my chest and say, I'm a Spurs fan. Pochettino, and I don't want to keep harping back to Poch, but I am. So that's the reality, right? He made us believe. He made us go to the next level. He got us to the top table 4 times. On the trot, like in the Champions League. We haven't been in there since. He made us believe that we could go and do this. He was to dare and is to do. Now he dared. Tottenham just failed to do, and they failed to do time and time and time again. And I just wonder, and maybe do a poll, but just wonder with all the viewers now watching and listening, do we actually think we're going to go and win that cup final? Have we got a chance of winning that cup final? Did we have a better chance with Jose in charge? We'll never know now, but hopefully we can go and get that trophy in the cabinet, mate.
Well, I'm certainly hoping we're going to lift this trophy, Lee, because how many times do I talk to you and not mention the word trophy? It's just ridiculous. We need trophies, and whoever's in charge, whoever's playing for us on Sunday at Wembley, we need to be lifting that trophy. Now, Lee, Wayne writes on screen now, who would you bring in until the end of the season? Because, of course, you said you're disappointed with Ryan Mason taking charge until the end of the season. Who would you like to see bring in? Because for me, I think if you're going to bring in an interim manager until the end of the season, managing these 6 remaining Premier League games in the cup final, surely it has to be someone connected with Spurs, played for us, or even perhaps managed us before and gets the club.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. Look, if they decide for it to be Ryan Mason, then I think that would be a mistake. Personally, if he's the figurehead, I think you need a bit of an older head and wiser shoulders. Personally, just for the last interim, I would bring in Harry Redknapp. I know it's probably a far cry, but I would have Ryan Mason wrapped around him that come through the academy probably when Harry was there. Ledley King's still there that played under Harry. You got Gareth Bale, who Harry Redknapp actually signed at the time, and I could just imagine him saying to the lads, lads, go and express yourselves, go and get involved, to get the best out of. Imagine Harry Redknapp, putting an arm around Ndombele and saying, go and play, Dele, go and do your thing. I think that will give us that confidence and that belief to go and have a go. So. And that is a famous word, isn't it? Of Harry Redknapp. Do you know what? We're going to have a go. And I think that he was the guy that got us into the top 4 for the first time. Yol was very, very close, but never got in there. And Harry Redknapp got in there with a 1-0 victory against Manchester City in the Etihad Stadium all them years ago for us to qualify for the Champions League. We had some amazing results under Harry Redknapp as well. So I think as an interim manager, that new manager bounce, that ability for him to come in and just say to the player, because personally, Chris, I'd like to hear your views as well. Personally, I think that's what we need. I think the shackles need to come off and we just need to go, do you know what, lads? Go play football. Go and do what you do on the training ground. Be free. Forget all of the analysis stuff. Just go and be free. And I think Harry would be perfect for that scenario with Ledley there, with Ryan Mason coming in, with some younger heads around Redknapp for the last 7 games. What do you think?
Do you know what? I think you're absolutely right in what you said earlier about that we know that the likes of Gareth Bale perhaps wouldn't play, Dele Alli wouldn't play. I'm even hearing reports now that Danny Rose is open to come back training with the Tottenham first team. You know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, but
Imagine that.
He did also ask the question: is there any news on Milan?
No, but
we don't know.
All of us Tottenham fans, particularly you, Lee, in the summer, you were very, very excited about Gareth Bale coming back. We all were. It hasn't quite worked out for Gareth Bale as we all thought it would, but we all know he's got that ability, and we all know what he can do in cup finals and big games. So, I'm really looking forward to this Sunday, I must say. We don't know what to expect now.
Who would you have in charge? Who would you have in charge? Sorry to interrupt, but who would you have in charge? What would you do now for the last 7 games? And actually, there's 2 questions here. Do you think he's got a replacement already?
I think he's got a replacement lined up, yes. I always think that Daniel Levy has got replacements before the manager is actually gone. 100%. I think that definitely happened with Mauricio Pochettino. In that turnaround was so quick. We all jokingly say, if you went to bed and then you got up in the morning, you got one manager being sacked, you got one manager coming in. I wouldn't be at all surprised, Lee, if later on this evening, when we're recording the Last Word on Spurs show, or even first thing tomorrow morning, a new manager will be there. I wouldn't be at all surprised, because it said that Ryan Mason is taking training today. You never know. You never ever know. But I'm gonna read you these names, because as soon as Jose Mourinho got sacked, channel sponsors William Hill, they sent me some names who their favourites are at the moment. Julian Nagelsmann is favourite to take over as Tottenham boss, 3-1. Brendan Rodgers is 5-1. Nuno Espirito Santo is 8-1. Then we've got Rafa Benitez at 9-1, and then we've got Scott Parker and Eddie Howe at 10-1. Now, any of those names, fancy any of them?
Yeah, definitely the first 2 for me. Look, we did a show again. No, not at all. And do you know what, Chris? That's what worries me the most. Look, Scott Parker, absolutely respect him. I think he'd be brilliant for us at one time, but just not yet. He's not grounded. He's not done enough yet. He needs to go. If he's going to go down, I hope he stays up. But it looks like the writing's on the wall. If he goes down with Fulham, I hope they keep hold of him and he gets him back up again. Keep standing at that football club. Frank Lampard just learnt the real hard way. Right, he's an absolute club legend at Chelsea. He left Derby County to go to Chelsea. He done okay, to be fair, but he got fired, and now he's never going to go back there again. Do you know what I mean? Maybe 6, 7, 10 years down the trot. So Scott Parker, Eddie Howe, no. Eddie Howe for me is, and I've got to check myself here, because I'll be honest with you, I've done an amazing interview with Darren Goff and Adrian Dunn on TalkSport back in the day before Pochettino was appointed, and I was absolutely adamant that I wanted Rafa Benitez. We needed a winner. We need somebody who's got proven. Like, who's this Pochettino? Don't know anything about him. Blah blah blah. How wrong was I? So Poch, arguably one of our best managers, certainly in the modern time. So how doesn't do it for me. I threw it out there. What about Chris Wilder? Well, because he's not a fashionable name. No one. Everyone's screwing their face up at me, Chris Wilder. What about Sean Dyche? Because you're not fancying these players, right? But these managers. So we have to go for the sexy names. So the Nagelsmann, the Rodgers, who you mentioned, but both would be good. You've got to argue, why would Rodgers want to leave? He's in the FA Cup final, so he ain't going to come as an interim manager. So he's going to manage Leicester City in the FA Cup, and hopefully win a trophy for them, for his sake, and for the Leicester. Get him in the top 4. He'll be in the Champions League next year with a trophy. But he's got form. Right, he's won loads at Celtic, and he's still left Celtic and went to Leicester. So potential with him. I think Nagelsmann would be really my favourite, because not only is he the favourite of William Hill, of course, but he's also a lot of fans' favourite. I know Jamie from the Daily Hotspur, one of our own, he's really keen on him. I think, again, young, progressive manager, very much cut his teeth in the Bundesliga with RB Leipzig. I think he could be a very, very good manager. But there's a big but there. Bayern Munich are sniffing around. And actually, is he going to go to Bayern Munich, and with Hans Flick moving on? So that's not, unless it's a done deal. And that's the bit you were saying about, if it's a done deal, brilliant. I'd like to see, also, I'd be quite happy with Conte. I think he's done an amazing job at Inter Milan. He's about to win Serie A with them. He's done an amazing job at Chelsea. as well. So again,
surely not another ex-Chelsea manager though, Lee.
Well, I know AVB, Jose Mourinho, you know, and Glenn Oddle, the list goes on. But you know, I'm sure it's deeper than that. But I wouldn't mind seeing Conte. I think he plays some good football. I think he's very passionate. I think he'd get very energised. You know, he played different style in the Premier League. So, yeah, I mean, Allegri, he always gets a mention, but that would be the wrong appointment for our football club. Look, an outsider for me is somebody that hasn't won anything. He's somebody that is an up and coming as well, knows the Premier League, and it isn't Eddie Howe. It would be Ralph Hasenhüttl. And again, I'm not saying that we should have him. We should go and get Ralph, but again, cut his teeth in the Austrian leagues beforehand. He's got some good stuff. So for me, I think the bookies have got it right. I hope he's the favourite, and I hope Levy's done the deal with him, because I think that would be an absolute maybe what's happened, and the straw that broke the camel's back with Jose is that Bayern Munich was sniffing around Julian Nagelsmann, and Levy had to act. So he went out, he had the conversation, he realised there was a deal to be done, so he done it, and then he sacked him. And yeah, maybe that's more than hope than expectation, but maybe that's what's happened. I mean, I think, Chris, if Julian Nagelsmann walks through the door tomorrow and says, "Right, boys, we're managing a cup final," I think we win the cup.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be at all surprised, Lee. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Colin writes on the screen now, is it true that Jose refused to take training because of the Super League? There's lots of rumours, there's lots of reports, nothing definite, nothing confirmed. So, you know, we can't really comment on that. Gary writes here, hi, Chris and Lee. I was a Jose supporter until the end, but since the 3-3 draw against West Ham, it was crap. Now, take us back to that 3-3 draw, Lee, at West Ham. You know, 3-0 up. You know, we think we're cruising. We think that we're going to get a record score in the Premier League at the rate we were playing. And then, you know, to end that game 3-3, it was awful, wasn't it?
And I think it absolutely was. And, you know, and don't forget, at 3-2, even though we'd had, you know, some comical clown defending as normal, panic and clown and can't get anything right away, even at 3-2, we could have won the game, because Gareth Bale went through and goal and he just put it wide. Left foot, bang. It just come outside the post, didn't it, rather than going inside. That would have been 4-2 and game over. I think that West Ham game as well followed the Newcastle game, which is another painstaking game. And I think, again, the attack of Tottenham Hotspur gets all the plaudits all of the time, and maybe rightly so. I mean, you can't argue Kane's goal involvements this year, 62 appearances, 62 goal involvements. It's absolutely ridiculous. 45 goals and 17 assists in all competitions in involvement with Kane. Now, Son is having the best goal scorer in Premier League season of his life, as is in terms of assists as well. You've got world-class Gareth Bale, we've talked about him as well. So, you know, you look at that attack and you just think, how wasted has it been? Imagine getting them three playing constantly all the time. And when you've got a player of Gareth Bale's stature, Gareth Bale's experience, Gareth Bale's ability, which we have seen, look, he's not the same as what he was before, so I'm not getting too carried away. But when you've got that player, you've got to use him. You've got to play him 10 games, 11 games, 12 games. Bring them players together. Are you with me, Chris? And I think that, you know, that's part of the failing of Mourinho around there. So, you know, I just think that you know, when you look at the rumours that have been flying around, when you look at the goal involvements, when you look at that West Ham game, we should have been out of sight. That Newcastle game, we should have been out of sight. You know, we should have. That Newcastle game was 1-0 until the 94th minute when controversial VAR handball, it went 1-1. But we should have scored at least 5 goals that day, but we didn't. So I got a lot of praise, but we should have been more clinical as well. We could have scored a lot more goals.
Very true, but we have scored over 100 goals, as you said earlier on in the video. Exactly. And you know, we haven't really struggled scoring goals this season. We've been absolutely superb. And as you've said, Heung-min Son, Harry Kane in particular, are having the seasons of their lives at the moment, playing out of their skin. But 17 different combinations at the back 4 or back 5 under Jose Mourinho this season. That has been the problem, hasn't it? And are you surprised? Are you surprised under Jose Mourinho's management, 17 months in charge at Spurs? You know, he has won so many trophies because he has a fantastic defence. He really works on that back line, and it just hasn't worked. Why is that the case?
I don't think they're good enough. To be honest,
but he brought players in.
Yeah, but in terms of the defence, I don't think Joe Rodon was with all due respect to Jose Mourinho signing. I don't think it was that. I think it was another opportunistic signing by the board. That is a young player that has been recommended. He's going to be he's a prospect and he's going to be a good player. But we got him for what, 15 million or whatever it was in pandemic, blah, blah, blah. We know for a fact that his number one centre-back target was Skriniar. We know that. We know 100%. And we had meetings over there. You know, Steve Hitchin and the recruitment team went over there to meet the guy and all his representatives. And they wanted 42 million for him. We paid 42 million for Sanchez. They wanted 42 million for Skriniar. We said no. Skriniar's about to win Serie A. I mean, you could not make this stuff up. You know, and again, it's the common denominator again. You know, the recruitment team, the people that were at the top making the decisions. It wasn't a Jose signing. It's other centre backs that Jose's brought in. He's giving Tanganga his chance. It's a 20-year-old come through the academy centre back, brilliant prospect again. But really, are you going to, you know, look at the problems that defensively Liverpool had in Klopp's first year. Yeah, they were good scoring goals. They were scoring a lot of goals, if you remember. But we turned them over 4-1, was it, at Wembley, when Kane turned inside out, their centre-back at the time, and he was absolutely woeful. They got rid of their goalkeeper. They got rid of their centre-back, Lovren. They got rid of the other fella. They got, you know, they had to, but Klopp had some time to do that. Klopp didn't win a trophy for 3 years at Liverpool. 3 years. He didn't win a trophy for, but then he won everything. And ironically, Liverpool win nothing this season as well. So after winning everything, they win nothing the season after. So, you know, I just think they also, by the way, sold their prize asset, 147 million for Coutinho to fund them deals. And also as well, Liverpool have got form. They also sold Suarez for 60, 72 million or whatever it was. And by the way, Liverpool have also got form because previous to that, they sold their top striker in Fernando Alonso. I wasn't talking about he's a racing driver, but you know, Fernando Torres. Sorry, brain's gone. But they did for 50 million, if you remember. They brought in Andy Carroll for 35. So Liverpool got form in doing that in previous years. So you know, Liverpool didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater when Klopp didn't win anything in his first season or his first full season. Jose Mourinho hasn't even had a full season at the club. He hasn't had one full season at the club.
Well, Lee, that's a very, very good point because only a couple of weeks ago, you know, I read a statement out from Jose Mourinho, an interview that he did, stating that, you know, Jose Mourinho never, ever gets given time like everybody else. Has it been unfair on Jose Mourinho that the fact that the board haven't given him time? Do you think that Daniel Levy kind of promised him that he would have time to deliver success at Spurs?
I'm not sure. I think that time is something that Jose Mourinho tends not to give his clubs either. You know, you've got to look at his record. You know, when he went in at Chelsea all them years ago, and I know it's changed and football's changed, all that sort of stuff. When he went into Chelsea all them years ago, Chelsea hadn't won the title for 50 years, 51 years or something like that. Right? They haven't won the top tier title. Now, people forget about that now, especially the younger fans, and fair play to them because they're growing up with Chelsea winning absolutely everything and doing all what they do. But when Jose winning their first time round, they hadn't won a title for years. And he got them winning a title. His first stint at Chelsea was what, less than 4 years? Was it? I think it was three and a half years. His first stint. Yeah. So even though he'd done all the stuff that he'd done, won back-to-back Premier League titles, he got Carabao Cup or whatever it's called, then EFL, he won the FA Cup, whatever. He still got let go, or he's still left. The second time he went to Chelsea, he was there even less, 2.5 years or whatever it was. When he was at Real Madrid, I think he might have spent 4 seasons there. Manchester United, he spent best part of 300 million, and he still was only there for less than 3 seasons. So you know, you talk about the board giving him time. Yes, this is his shortest stint. I mean, you couldn't make it up. Good old Tottenham, always going to happen, isn't it? So this is his shortest stint in management, but he doesn't give the clubs time either. You know, this was, you could have argued that if he'd have won the Carabao Cup and got us into the top 4, he would have stayed another year, which is myself and Dean Austin done a show with Last One of Spurs with Rick a couple of weeks back. I know you had Dean Austin as well on here a few weeks ago. And we were both convinced that actually Jose would be given another year because actually if he gets the cup under his... And then the last couple of results, draw 2-2 Newcastle, 2-2 Everton, really limp and lambic display, if you like, against Manchester United in the second half at home. And that's done him. That's cost him his job because we ain't going to get top 4. And I'm one of the most optimistic people. Sometimes probably some people will say unrealistic, but we ain't getting top 4. And so that ship has sailed. And, and I think John Venom, one of our own, actually said the other day on one of the other shows, last one on Spurs, when he said the week of losing to Arsenal and then getting dumped, like properly embarrassed by Zagreb, that was it.
Well, I've got to say, Lee, under Jose Mourinho, there has been a lot more low points than there has been high points. And when I think back, and I'm sorry to keep going on about Pochettino, but I think it's very hard. Like you said earlier, he brought us to a certain level, and then we got used to that level. And then whenever I mention top 4, people, sometimes on this channel say, why are you mentioning top 4? Because I'm used to being top 4. I'm used to going to the Champions League year in, year out under Pochettino. So when we got Europa League and we scraped through to the Europa League under Jose, you think that this year, particularly like you said, back in December, we're sitting top of the league for 5 weeks. You expect us to be in the Champions League. Now, Daniel Levy and the board made that decision of sacking Pochettino because they felt that Pochettino and Spurs couldn't get that Champions League place. Do you think it's now that Daniel Levy has made this decision now because he feels that we are now in jeopardy of even getting a Europa League place? Because let's face it, I know we're going to talk about the European Super League as well, but if the European Super League doesn't happen, we need that European spot for our stadium, for our fans, for everything connected to the club, don't we?
It's a really interesting one. I think maybe the European Super League, this letter of intent that's been signed by the Big Six per se, and again, by the way, Everton will probably argue that, Villa will probably argue that, Leicester City would argue that as well in terms of the Big Six. I know why we're in there. Like I said before, we finished on average 5th since the Premier League started. So from a top 5, top 6 perspective, we're in the top 5. That's the reality. They're the facts. But we've never won the European Cup. Arsenal have never won the European Cup. Manchester City have never won the European Cup. This is madness really with a Big Six. But we've 3 of the teams that I've just named there ain't even won the European Cup. Villa have won it. Forest have won it. Everton. Yeah. These teams. Leicester City won a Premier League only a few seasons ago. So but I do. The reason why I bring that up is because I think that does have a bearing on some of the decision making. Because if you know that we're doing a breakaway European Super League, you're not going to be in the Europa League next year, regardless, because you're doing an ESL, right? You're not going to be in the Champions League, regardless. Them clubs have made that decision, regardless if that happens or not. That's what they're thinking at this moment in time. Are you with me? So actually, they're not thinking, oh, we need to get Europa League football, because in their heads they're doing ESL. So ESL is the way forward, and that's going to replace the European calendar. I think there's a massive backlash that we're already seeing on this European Super League, but I think the backlash that will hurt us fans the most is not only what 140-year history that we've got in our football club, or virtually there or thereabouts, the size of the community and the local community and where we're going, and it's just pure greed. 3.5 billion to be financed by JP Morgan, of which the founding 15 as it end up being 300 million each. You can understand, or you can see, whilst that may be attractive from a money perspective, the amount of money that everyone's lost, all these clubs are lost in the pandemic, etc., etc. All of a sudden, it's almost like a big bailout. The cricket did this, with the IPL, the Indian Premier League, and it's 2020. It's gone absolutely bonkers worldwide. So this could be something. You see, I'm trying to give some balance, Chris, on that. When you're a fan, when I pay for my season ticket, when the club has put out, please renew your season tickets, before telling us that they're going to be part of the Big Six European Super League, that's a little bit disingenuous, isn't it, Chris? They're asking for our money as our fans, but actually not telling us where we're going and what we're doing, where the football club's going to be. I think that's a little bit disingenuous. I think that the European Super League, if it doesn't go ahead, I still think there's going to be ramifications for the clubs that have said we want to do it. And that I don't think that'll be banishment. That won't be punishment. I know there's a lot of angry people in some very high places that can do stuff. But I don't think that you're going to get a situation where the Premier League are going to ban effectively the top 6 clubs in that competition, because they're worried about the European Super League devaluing that competition. But if they ban them and relegate us all to the 5th tier of English football, they're going to be devaluing the Premier League again, aren't they? So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? There's definitely ramifications coming, right?
Well, I was going to ask Lee, the announcement and the statement came out from Spurs at 11:15 last night. Were you in bed or were you still awake? When did you hear about it first, officially from Tottenham, and how did you feel about it?
I actually didn't see. I saw some murmurings on Sky last night about this happening, this breaking news, and my initial reaction, if I'm honest, was, "No, this is a bit of this won't happen. I don't think it will happen." And then obviously throughout the night, obviously went to bed or whatever. Throughout the night, that story's materialised, and then obviously today, throughout the whole of the day, it's not only actually it could happen. It's they are saying it's going to happen. In terms of the clubs that have signed up, they've signed. They're resigning from the ECA. The UEFA European Council. They're resigning from that. They're saying, no, we're coming out of that coalition or whatever. They're coming out. It's because we're doing our own thing. They're forcing the hand that is at the moment have got them tied up in these massive contracts. Look, from a money perspective or business point of view, think about the top clubs, right? So just in the Premier League. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. You look at the clubs in the Premier League, right? And you say, right, the Liverpool, Manchester United, arguably the best, one of the 2 best clubs in world football, let alone in the Premier League. They bring in more revenue to the Premier League than any other clubs, right? The more TV rights and all that sort of stuff is absolutely massive. And they want a bigger chunk of that pie. They do. They want a bigger chunk. They're saying to themselves, why do I not get more money for X, Y, and Z? And no disrespect, but maybe a Sheffield United who are relegated, who are playing Burnley, they get an equal share of the TV rights or the pie or whatever it might be. This is so. I know this isn't the ESL, right? The European Super League, but this was the bill that they put forward a few months ago, which was unequivocally, no, we're not doing this. This is not happening. And now this European Super League has come about to almost force their hand to do something, because the big clubs are saying, we want more. So it's greed, isn't it? Like, what do you think, Chris? It's basically they're saying, the big clubs are saying, we want more. It means that we play Chelsea, for example, twice in the Premier League in a season and twice in the ESL in a season. It means that not only have we now got to struggle from a Tottenham Hotspur perspective in the Premier League, we've now also got to struggle in the ESL, because we're going to be playing the top clubs every single week, week in, week out. So you can look at it from a pessimistic perspective. From an optimistic point of view, you could say, wow, we're going to be playing the top clubs in Europe every single week, week in, week out. It means that we're going to be able to finance, get better players. It means that we're going to be able to mix it with the best, and we're going to finally be able to dine at that top table. But then the other side of the argument is, well, what about the pyramid system? What about, promotion and relegation and the whole foundation of football? Look.
It's greed. It's greed, Lee, like you said. And for me, I'm quite traditional in the fact that, I love the FA Cup. I love the League Cup, right? I love Spurs to compete in these competitions. When we're playing Premier League football, not only do I want to see Spurs compete for the top 4, I want to see Tottenham actually compete for the Premier League. And that's why I probably mentioned Pochettino so much, because he took us very close to getting there. Now, when you think back earlier this season, when we've had Jose Mourinho, who have got so many teams over the line in the past, as we say, we lost to Dynamo Zagreb 3-0. We went out of the Europa League. We went out of the FA Cup to Everton. We haven't won an FA Cup since '91. Haven't won a League Cup since 2008. Haven't won a championship since 1961 and a European trophy since '84. One of my favourite lines to say about all these, the trophy drought. When we haven't won trophies in all that time, we then enter a Super League with all of these fantastic teams around Europe. How are we competing to actually win that competition? We're there to make the numbers up. That's what worries me as a Spurs fan as well. We're just there to make the numbers up. It's all about the money. You know, are you expecting, as a Spurs fan, you know, Tottenham to get £350 million to go in it? Well, how much of that money is actually going to be spent on the pitch? Probably none of it.
Well, again, I think it's a really good point. And actually, who do we need to replace on the pitch? Because there is, you know, Harry Kane didn't sign up for a European Super League. Now, I'm not saying that he doesn't want to play in it, but what happens if he doesn't? What happens if his son doesn't want to play? What happens if Levy says, what on earth? But this is a huge division of everybody, fans, players, football clubs, board directors. There'll be people in boardrooms at them football clubs that don't agree with this decision. But ultimately, it's driven, I suppose, by the owners or, you know, the powers that be at each football club. So, you know, I think, you know, I don't want to defend the board really, but I have to give it a balanced view. And I think if you were Daniel Levy, you're the chairman of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and you get an opportunity to go into a massively lucrative European Super League that may enable the football club to have a unbelievable foundation for the next 10, 15, 20 years. You can't just say no to it. I'm not saying you have to say yes, by the way, but I'm saying you can't just say no to it. But you've got to be thinking about the ramifications. What happens if Kane just knocks on the door and says, I ain't playing no European Super League. I'm gone.
When you think the players
what happens if they ban him from international football? He's England's captain. What happens if they say, if you play in that European Super League, Kane, you can't play in the Euros? What is he going to do? It's a mess.
Well,
bigger mess.
I just want to show you some of the back pages today, Lee. This one is from the Sun. We'll ban you.
There you go.
And then we've got the Daily Mirror here. Criminal act against fans. You know, a lot of the fans are very, very unhappy about this. The Daily Express, it's war. And we've got the Daily Mail here. Football at war.
Big.
You know, I saw last night as well, and obviously this morning, the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust have actually put out a statement saying that if Tottenham Hotspur don't come out of this European Super League, they will actually be calling on the board, you know, to be out. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a massive subject. I think that if you're going to ask me directly, do I want to be in the European Super League and for everything that goes with it, I would say at this moment in time, no. For footballing reasons as well as sentimental reasons and everything else. For money reasons, you'd have to say that you'd want to be in it because it's probably going to pay you more money, right? You're not going to earn 350 million anywhere else, right? So that's where that's coming from. I think there's a worry that you get even further behind. We've just tried to get to the top table and done all the stuff that we've done over the last, 10, 15 years in terms of off the pitch, infrastructure, stadium, all that jazz. And then all of a sudden, if we're not in the European Super League and it's something that happens regardless and it goes on and we're left behind, we get left behind again. So I think there's that worry. I also think that actually, if it is going to devalue the Premier League, and that we're not in the European Super League, we'd just be winning the second division almost. Do you know what I mean? So it's devaluing that. Now, if you got a European Super League tie against Inter Milan right on Wednesday, and then you play Burnley on the Saturday, what team are you putting out for Burnley versus what team are you putting out for Inter Milan? This is the problem. And people could argue, well, hang on a minute, you do that with Champions League. Pep does that now. And you do, to be fair. But at least with the Champions League, you have to earn the right to be in there. I've never really agreed it being called the Champions League because 4 teams from England get in it, but there's only one champion, which it used to be, obviously, and they changed the format. And, everybody was probably up in arms at that point when everybody changed the format of the Champions League, when it become Champions League from the European Cup. But everyone got on with it, and now it's the best thing in the world. So maybe that's what happens with the ESL. Maybe that's what happens. But right now, it's probably too raw to make a ruling on what that looks like. What I do know is that if we wasn't invited if the ESL is happening, exactly the same stuff has been happening right now, and we wasn't invited in, we would be moaning about it. That's what I can tell you now. That if we wasn't invited in, we'd be going, it's a disgrace. We should be in there. Da, 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 da. The fact that we're in there, we're now saying, oh, it's a disgrace. It's happening. I don't think it might not happen, but something will happen off the back of this. Whether or not it's exactly the ESL they've proposed, but I think it's clear that the big clubs, or some of the big clubs, certainly for the top 3 leagues in the world, they want something to change. So that's what's going to happen.
You say that though, Lee, but when you found out that, you know, all of these rumours were happening and being talked about, did you want to see Tottenham there? Were you hoping that Tottenham were actually in there or not?
I think the only way for me to answer that is that I hope that we get top 4, and I hope we get in the Champions League. But by God, I do not want to get mauled by Bayern Munich 7-2, because that is not happy. That is not happy times. So I don't think we're ready as a squad to be in the Champions League, let alone a Super League. So that's the only way I can answer that. Do I want to dine at the top table of football and be an elite football? Yeah. I don't want to be playing Division 2 football, right? If that's how it's going to work out. But do I think we're ready for that? No, I don't. I don't think we're ready. I think we'll be embarrassed, and I think we'll be the whipping boys.
Well, Colin writes now on screen, football club owners are no longer football fans. They are businessmen and whatever makes the most money for their presidents. Now, Lee, you've worked very closely with Lord Sugar. What do you make of the whole, owners of football clubs? And, are they football fans? Is it just about the money now? Is it just about greed now?
Well, I think it was a long time ago with Lord Sugar for sure. And I remember, Is Lord Sugar a football fan? 100%. Absolutely a Tottenham fan through and through. Like 1,000,000% he's a Tottenham fan and he's a football fan. But I think it's changed a lot. I think that nowadays it's different. It's interesting actually because Colin talks about NFL and NBA, right? And they are both American sports. And I'll probably sum up on this little bit if I can, Chris, because I need to get off. But on the European Super League by saying the three driving clubs and actually the biggest forces behind English football, as Genev pointed out yesterday, are Liverpool, Manchester United. Oh, I'm getting feedback there. Sorry, Liverpool, Manchester United, and arguably Arsenal over the past 20 years, all of which have got American owners. All of which they have. So I think that there is an influence from over the pond for this, and actually you could see it becoming absolutely huge and absolutely massive, like the NFL, for example. But is it the right thing for our game, for our sport? I don't know. I mean, look, nothing surprises me now. We've got VAR. What else do you want to do? Yeah.
Luke, thank you so much for your comment. And Lee is a fantastic guest. That's why I love having him on.
Thanks, Luke.
Tottenham Hotspur 1882. I'm now an Aston Villa fan. This has upset a lot. This has upset a lot of fans, Lee, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there will be a lot of fans up and down the country now that will be looking at the kind of lower league local teams because of that, and I think that goes back to the trust that you was talking about before. With the football clubs, I think that. But again, you've got to ask yourself a question. This is a rhetorical question: like, do football clubs care? At the end of the day, they're going to get a worldwide audience. They get people that will buy the kit and whatever worldwide. Are they worried about if you live in Enfield or not? Are they worried about if you grew up on the terraces in Tottenham? Are they worried about season ticket holders being local? Is basically what I'm saying. The reality of the situation is that somebody somewhere will love and learn to love Tottenham Hotspur again, and whether or not that's us or the people that are currently the fans. Or they just get a new fan base, and that's what will happen. That's what they think will happen, right?
Well, do you know what I'm worried about, Lee? You know that I go to every game, home and away.
Every game.
I can't be travelling to Europe every other week, can I?
It's going to be a difficult one. See if they can pay some of your subs. Do you know what I mean? Like on the flights, I think that's going to be the issue, isn't it? Right? Again, like the game's changing, isn't it? COVID's changed the game. The live streaming of football matches, every single football match. I don't think we're going to go back to non-free 3 o'clock kickoffs live on TV and all that sort of stuff. 5 or 6 games on a Saturday. I mean, it's been evolving like that from a media perspective for years and years and years. The Premier League whether or not they come out and do their own channel, like a Netflix type channel for Premier League streaming services, or if this ESL is going to come in. Look, my understanding is that ESL is not replacing the Premier League, and they want the two competitions to be hand in hand. What ESL is doing is actually replacing the European Cup competitions. That's basically what it's replacing. And what they're probably going to end up negotiating is the Champions League goes back to a format like the European Cup used to be, when the champions of each league play a cup competition, but the European Super League is a league. You get points, like 2, 3 points, 1 point for a draw, whatever. And that's the reality. Can we get more games in? Can we fit more games in? Can these players play more games? Should they play more games? They've got a short career anyway. You see Harry Kane with another ankle injury. Does he need to play extra games? I mean, this is ridiculous. They don't care. They just flog it. Just keep flogging, sweating the asset. Get more money out of it. That's what they do. That's what everybody does. It's pure greed. I don't agree with it.
Even Colin writes here, in these Super League games, could you see VAR sponsored by Pepsi or Coke? I wouldn't be at all surprised by any of these sorts of things. Lee, I know you've got to go. Wrap this up by giving me a summary of Jose Mourinho's time at Tottenham, your favourite and your worst moment of him, and who you would like to see as the next Spurs boss.
So, Crazy Train. Interim manager. I called it from day one, and I've stuck by my guns. It was always going to be a Crazy Train, so his time is there. My favourite moment with Jose Mourinho in charge of our football club, and I was becoming more endeared to him as well during the documentary, but you called it out earlier. It was a 6-1 thrashing of Manchester United away at Old Trafford, absolute mauling. The performance in the second half against Southampton as well, when we battered them 5-2, was just absolutely outrageous. That was one of the one of my highlights as well. North London derby, beating Arsenal is always good, and beating Chelsea in the Carabao Cup final, even though it was on penalties. The low lights, not having a shot on target against Bournemouth that you talked about before. The turgid football, 17 different involvements for defenders and centre backs, absolutely ridiculous. The grumpiness, the moodiness of the man himself. You know, you need to work with a smile on your face. You need to get fresh, get haircuts, get happy, get people around you, work with them. Isolation of players, horrific. You know, some of our best players that he's just been isolated, not great. Maybe should have been still in charge for the cup final, but let's see what happens with the new manager bounce. The person I want to see to come in, I think I'd like to see Nagelsmann come in for full time, but I'd like to see Harry Redknapp come in as an interim manager with Ryan Mason and Ledley King as his backroom staff to lift that trophy with Harry Redknapp as well. Would be pretty awesome stuff. So that's what I'd like to see.
The scenes, I could just imagine it. Like,
be fantastic. It'd be brilliant if we could get in there. I just want to say as well, I got 240 loyalty points. And hats off to anybody that genuine loyalty points that got a ticket, because it was 490, and to have 490 loyalty points is absolutely steaming. So well done to everyone that got a ticket. Please sing for the rest of us, because we absolutely need to win this cup, not to keep anybody or for the future, just so we can put to bed people like Dulux posting on Twitter about our trophy cabinet. Just done. Get the dust out and get that in the cabinet, please.
Are we winning the cup, Lee?
I'll tell you once we wake up in the morning and we've got a new appointment. I'll tell you, I'll be worried if we haven't got somebody lined up or as an interim manager. That would be my feeling. I was adamant that we was going to win the cup. It's been such a strange season. I'd say yeah, let's do it. Why not? I think we're going to win the cup.
Lee, sorry, I've just got to read Nigel's comment before you go. Based on the possible response from UEFA, FA, even possibility of players with clubs with the European Super League not being able to play for country anymore, Harry Kane will be gone at the end of the season. Now, very quickly, Lee, Harry Kane...
He ain't going to the other top six, is he, to be fair? So, he ain't going to Man City anymore then, is he? Do you know what I mean? So, if he goes, it'd be either to PSG or to Bayern as it stands. But equally as well, if this ESL, and there's loads of ramifications that have got to come, we're going to see this story changing all the time. But if the ESL does happen, Bayern and PSG, make no bones about it, will end up being in that league. They will. Once it starts, it starts. It's the same as the IPL. The best players around the world, they didn't want to give up their England central contracts in cricket. But in the end, it becomes so big, all the best players play in it. And they gave up their central contracts if they needed to at the time. And then in the end, the international team realised that they can't not give them central contracts, and they've got to release them for the IPL, and that's what happens. So, you know, in the end, they get what they want.
Yeah. Lee, thank you so much for joining me today. And
thanks, Chris.
You know, it's been a very difficult up and down season, but let's hope that we can win this cup on Sunday. You know, whoever is in charge, Ryan Mason, Nabelsman, whoever is in charge in the dugout at Wembley Stadium on Sunday, let's hope that we can just lift this trophy drought of 13 years. And then I don't need to go on about trophies so much. Lee, a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much as always.
See you later on, buddy. See you soon. Well, I'll see you tonight, won't I?
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.